The alarm bells rang across Kepler Haven Station like a death song. Commander Jake Morrison ran through the metal corridors, his boots making loud sounds on the floor. He had never heard the emergency alarm sound so long before. Something was very wrong. Jake reached the control room and saw Captain Lisa Bennett's face on the big screen. Her ship, the Aurora Dawn, was far away at the edge of space where no one usually went. Lisa looked scared. Her clothes were torn and there was blood on her face. "Commander Morrison, you need to hear this," Lisa said. Her voice shook like she was very cold. "We found something out here. Something terrible." Jake sat down in his chair and looked at the screen. "What did you find, Lisa?" Lisa took a deep breath. "Ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They are not like any ships we have seen before. They look like they are alive, like giant animals made of metal and flesh." The other people in the control room stopped working and listened. Jake felt his heart beat faster. "Are they friendly?" "No," Lisa said quickly. "They destroyed the Omega colony. All of it. 15 million people lived there yesterday. Today there is nothing. The planet is dead. The oceans are gone. Even the air is gone." Jake stood up. This could not be true. The Omega colony was one of the biggest human settlements outside Earth. It had strong shields and good weapons. How is that possible? "They have weapons we do not understand," Lisa said. "The ships seem to eat the planets. They suck out all the life and energy. I saw it happen to 3 worlds. They call themselves the Void Reapers." A young officer named Sam Peters spoke up. "Captain Bennett, how did you escape?" Lisa's eyes looked empty. "We hid behind a dead moon and watched. They did not see us. When they left, we ran as fast as we could, but Commander, they are coming this way. They are moving toward all the living worlds." Jake felt sick in his stomach. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me the Galactic Council right now." Within an hour, ships started arriving at Kepler Haven. But these were not warships. They were refugee ships full of scared people running away from their homes. The first ship came from the Zephyr system. The captain was a tall blue alien named Kexville. "The Reapers came in the night," Kexville said. "They did not talk to us. They did not ask us to surrender. They just started killing everything. My people have lived on Zephyr Prime for 10,000 years. Now it is a dead rock floating in space." More ships came. Each one told the same scary story. The Void Reapers moved from system to system like a disease. They destroyed everything they found. No one could fight them. No one could stop them. Jake sent messages to all the military bases in the area. He told them to get ready for war. But he knew it would not be enough. The Reapers had destroyed entire fleets of ships like they were toys. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council happened on the big space station called Central Point. Representatives from 47 different species came to the meeting. Jake had never seen so many different kinds of beings in one place. There were the tall Zephyrians with their blue skin, the small furry Kellans, the rock-like Gordians, and many others. Council leader Vextar stood at the front of the big room. He was old even for a Zephyrian, and his blue skin had turned almost white with age. His voice was deep and sad when he spoke. "Friends, we face the end of everything we know," Vextar said. "The beings that call themselves Void Reapers have destroyed 43 star systems in the past month. Our combined fleets have tried to fight them. We lost every battle." A Kellan representative raised her small furry hand. "What about the defense grid around the core worlds? Can it stop them?" "No," Vextar said. "Our best scientists say the Reapers will reach the core worlds in 6 months, maybe less. They are getting faster as they consume more planets." The room became very quiet. Jake could hear the air moving through the vents. Everyone was thinking about their families, their homes, their entire species dying. "There is one option we have not tried," said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to look. Admiral Kate Sullivan from Earth's Colonial Navy stood up slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were hard like steel. Most of the aliens had never seen a human before. They stared at her with curiosity and fear. "Admiral Sullivan," Vextar said, "Earth was invited to observe. But humans are not members of the council. Kate walked toward the front of the room. Her boots made sharp sounds on the floor. That's right. You never wanted us to join. You said humans were too violent, too dangerous. You said our world was too harsh and it made us into killers. Some of the aliens made uncomfortable sounds. Jake knew the stories about Earth. Most species called it a death world because everything on it tried to kill everything else. The weather could kill you. The animals could kill you. Even some of the plants could kill you. But now you're all going to die, Kate continued. And you're running out of options. Earth is willing to help, but we do this our way. A Gordian representative made a sound like rocks grinding together. What do you mean, your way? Kate stopped walking and looked around the room. We fight like we're already dead. We use weapons you think are too cruel. We take risks you think are too dangerous. And we don't stop fighting until either we win or there's nothing left of us to fight. The room was silent again. Jake could see the fear in the aliens' eyes. They were scared of the Reapers, but they were also scared of the humans. Vextar spoke carefully. What exactly are you offering, Admiral? Everything, Kate said simply. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. But we command our own forces. We plan our own battles. And we fight by our own rules. A Zephyrian scientist stood up. Admiral, our intelligence says Earth has a population of 12 billion. Humans and maybe 1,000 ships. The Reapers have tens of thousands of ships. How can you possibly help us? Kate smiled, but it was not a happy smile. You've been watching our civilian ships and our exploration vessels. You've never seen our military. There's a lot about Earth you don't know. Such as? Vextar asked. We've been preparing for this kind of war for our entire history, Kate said. Every human learns to fight before they learn to read. Every human child grows up knowing that the universe wants to kill them. We don't just have an army, we are an army. The room exploded with nervous chatter. Representatives talked in dozens of different languages. Some argued for accepting Earth's help. Others said humans were too dangerous to trust. Jake watched Kate Sullivan stand calmly in the middle of all the chaos. She did not look worried or upset. She looked like someone who had already decided what she was going to do. Finally, Vextar raised his hand for quiet. The Council will vote. All in favor of accepting Earth's military assistance? Slowly, hands and claws and tentacles rose around the room. Not all of them, but enough. The motion passes, Vextar said. Admiral Sullivan, Earth's help is accepted. May the universe forgive us all. Kate nodded once. Send coordinates for where you want us to begin. And, Council Leader, start evacuating the core worlds. This is going to get much worse before it gets better. As the meeting ended, Jake watched the various species leave the room. They all looked scared. But for the first time since the Reapers appeared, Jake felt something like hope. The Deathworlders were coming to war. The message from Admiral Kate Sullivan reached Earth in 3 days. President Alan Carter read it in his office while looking out at the Pacific Ocean. The water was calm today, but he knew that would change soon. Everything was about to change. Sir, the military leaders are here, his assistant said through the door. Alan pressed a button on his desk. Send them in. General Susan Torres walked into the office first. She was a tall woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from the corporate wars. Behind her came Admiral Paul Richardson, General Carl Hayes, and Dr. Carol Reeves from the Science Division. You all read the report from the Galactic Council, Alan said. How bad is it really? General Torres sat down and opened her tablet. Bad. These Void Reapers have weapons we've never seen. They can destroy entire planets in hours. Our allies out there are getting crushed. What do we have that can fight them? Alan asked. Admiral Richardson spoke up. Everything, sir. Project Lazarus has been ready for 5 years. We just never thought we'd need to use it. Alan nodded. Project Lazarus was the most secret military program on Earth. Only 50 people knew it existed. How many ships? 6,000 combat vessels, Richardson said. All of them built for one purpose, war. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. Sir, I've been studying the data from Captain Bennett's ship. The Reaper technology is biological. Their ships are alive. They eat planets to make more ships. Like a virus, Alan said. Exactly. And like any virus, they can be killed if we find the right medicine. General Torres stood up and walked to the big screen on the wall. She pressed some buttons and a map appeared. It showed Earth and all the human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. Sir, we recommend full activation of all military assets. That means calling up every reserve unit, every colonial defense force, and every corporate security fleet. Alan knew what that meant. For 200 years, humans had been fighting each other. Companies fought over mining rights. Colonies fought over territory. Earth's government fought to keep order. But now they would all fight together against something that wanted to kill them all. Do it, Alan said. Send the activation codes. On Mars, Lieutenant Ben Walsh was teaching new soldiers how to fight in zero gravity when his communicator buzzed. The message was short. Report to base command immediately. Full combat gear. Ben had been a Marine for 8 years. He had fought in the Titan Rebellion and the Europa mining conflicts. He knew what emergency orders looked like. This was different. This was bigger. He found his unit waiting in the briefing room. 30 soldiers, all of them veterans of Earth's many small wars. They looked nervous. Ben had never seen them look nervous before. Listen up, Ben said as he walked to the front of the room. We just got new orders. We're going to fight aliens. Sergeant Lisa Murphy raised her hand. Sir, what kind of aliens? Ben turned on the holographic projector. Images appeared in the air showing the Void Reaper ships. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. Some were as big as cities. They call themselves Void Reapers, Ben said. They've been destroying entire star systems. They don't talk. They don't negotiate. They just kill everything they find. Private Danny Torres, the youngest soldier in the unit, whistled softly. How are we supposed to fight those things, sir? The same way. We fight everything else, Ben said. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't stop until they're dead. What about the other aliens, the ones asking for our help? Asked Corporal Mike Johnson. Ben smiled grimly. They're about to learn why nothing stays dead on Earth for very long. Meanwhile, in her laboratory deep under the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Carol Reeves worked on the most important project of her life. She had samples of Reaper biotechnology that Captain Bennett had managed to collect. The material was unlike anything she had ever seen. It's definitely organic, she said to her assistant, Dr. Peter Kim. But it's been modified somehow, enhanced. The cellular structure is incredibly complex. Peter looked at the data on his screen. The energy readings are off the charts. This stuff can process matter at the atomic level. Carol nodded. That's how they consume planets so quickly. They don't just eat the surface, they break down everything into basic elements and use it to grow more ships. Can we kill it? Everything can be killed, Carol said. We just need to find the right weapon. She worked for 3 days straight, testing different chemicals and radiation types on the Reaper samples. Nothing worked. The biomaterial adapted to everything she tried. Then she had an idea. Earth was full of life that had evolved to survive in impossible conditions. Bacteria that lived in boiling water, viruses that could eat radiation, fungi that grew in pure acid. Peter, get me samples from the thermal vents in the Pacific, she said, and the toxic waste sites in Russia, and the acid pools in Yellowstone. Ma'am, those places will kill you just by being near them. Exactly, Carol said with a smile. Let's see how the Reapers like a taste of Earth's special brand of death. Above Earth's surface, the first ships of humanity's real military began to move. The USS Liberty was a battleship 2 miles long and covered in armor that could survive flying through a sun. Captain Rick Harper had commanded her for 3 years, but only in training exercises. All systems green, sir, his second in command, Commander Janet Stone, reported. We're ready to jump to hyperspace. Rick looked at the view screen showing Earth getting smaller behind them. He had grown up on a farm in Kansas, but he had always known this day would come. Every human did. Earth was a violent world, and it made violent people. Signal the fleet, he said. All ships follow our lead. Time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. 20 ships followed the Liberty into hyperspace. They were just the first wave. Behind them, hundreds more were preparing to launch. In the Titan shipyards, workers raced to finish the last of the warships. These were not like the peaceful exploration vessels other species used. These ships were built to fight and keep fighting, even when they were falling apart. Admiral Richardson stood on the observation deck watching the final ship roll out of construction. It was called the Vengeance, and it was the biggest ship humans had ever built. Its main weapon could crack a moon in half. "Sir, we have confirmation from all colonial fleets," his aide reported. "The Martian Defense Force is ready. The Asteroid Mining Guild has converted their industrial ships to carriers. Even the Outer Rim pirates have volunteered to help." Richardson nodded. For the first time in human history, every faction was working together. The corporate wars were over. The colonial rebellions were forgotten. Now there was only one enemy. "What's our total strength?" Richardson asked. 6,000 combat ships, sir. 2 million soldiers. And Dr. Reeves thinks she's close to a breakthrough on a biological weapon. Richardson watched the Vengeance move toward the launch position. Its hull was black as space and covered with weapon ports. "Signal all commands," he said. "Humanity is going to war." Back on Earth, President Carter recorded a message that would be sent to every human settlement in the galaxy. "My fellow humans," he said, looking directly into the camera. "For 200 years we have fought each other over resources, territory, and ideology. Today that ends. We face an enemy that wants to destroy not just us but everything alive in the galaxy." He paused and looked at the papers on his desk. Reports from the refugee ships painted a clear picture. The Void Reapers were not just conquerors. They were exterminators. Other species have called us violent. They've called our world a death trap. They've said we're too dangerous to trust. Today, they're going to find out they were right. But they're also going to find out that sometimes you need monsters to fight monsters. The message would reach Mars in 8 minutes, the outer colonies in hours, and the furthest human settlements in days. But Carter knew the response would be the same everywhere. Humans were good at many things, but they were best at war. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have is now committed to this fight," Carter continued. "We will show the galaxy why Earth breeds survivors. We will show the Reapers why nothing on our world stays dead. And we will remind the universe that humans don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies wish they had never been born." He ended the recording and looked out his window again. The ocean was still calm, but storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. The Death World was waking up, and it was angry. The first human fleet arrived at the Arcturus system 3 days after leaving Earth. Captain Rick Harper stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the long-range sensors. Somewhere out there, a small group of Void Reaper ships was moving toward the colonies. "Contact on sensors, sir," reported Lieutenant Sarah Jones from her station. 12 Reaper vessels, moving at standard speed toward Arcturus Prime. Rick nodded. The planet had 8 million people on it, mostly miners and their families. They had already started evacuating, but it would take weeks to get everyone off the planet. "Signal the fleet," Rick said. "Battle formation Alpha. We go. In fast and hard." Behind the Liberty, 19 other human ships moved into position. They were smaller than the massive Reaper vessels, but they were built for one thing. War Commander Janet Stone looked at her tactical display. "Sir, the Reaper ships are 3 times our size. Our weapons might not be able to hurt them." "Then, we get close enough to make sure they do," Rick replied. On the observation station at the edge of the system, Captain Thelvas of the Zephyrian Navy watched through his long-range telescopes. He had been ordered to observe the human tactics and report back to the Council. So far, he was not impressed. "Sir, the human ships are moving directly toward the Reapers," his sensor officer reported. "No fancy maneuvers, no attempt to use the asteroid field for cover. They're just flying straight at them." Thelvas made notes on his tablet. Humans appeared to lack basic tactical knowledge. Any civilized species would try to avoid direct combat with superior forces. "The Reapers are firing," the officer said. Through his telescope, Thelvas saw the Reaper bioships launch their weapons. Streams of energy that could melt through any known armor struck the human vessels. He expected to see them destroyed immediately. Instead, the human ships kept coming. "Impossible," Thelvas whispered. "How are they still intact?" The answer came when the human ships fired back. Their weapons were different from anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Instead of clean energy beams, they launched what looked like small suns, nuclear warheads that exploded with the power of stars. "By the ancestors," the sensor officer gasped. "They're using fusion weapons in space combat. That's insane." The nuclear explosions lit up the darkness between the stars. 3 Reaper ships were caught in the blast and began to drift, their biohulls melting from the radiation. But the real shock came when one of the human ships, a destroyer called the Hammer, suddenly accelerated toward the largest Reaper vessel. Commander Pete Johnson stood on the bridge of the Hammer as alarms rang all around him. His ship had taken heavy damage, but the reactor was still working. That was all he needed. "All crew to escape pods," he ordered. "Emergency evacuation now." His first officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, grabbed his arm. "Sir, what are you doing?" "Something no sane person would try," Pete said with a grim smile. "Get to the pods, that's an order." Amy and the rest of the crew ran for the escape pods while Pete stayed on the bridge. He aimed his ship directly at the Reaper vessel and pushed the engines to maximum power. "This is Commander Johnson to all ships," he said over the radio. "Tell my wife I remembered to take out the trash." The Hammer slammed into the side of the Reaper ship at full speed. Pete's last act was to overload the nuclear reactor. The explosion was so bright that it could be seen from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the explosion had damaged 2 other Reaper vessels so badly they stopped moving. On the observation station, Captain Thelvas stared at his screens in complete shock. Did he just ram his ship into the enemy on purpose? Yes, sir. The explosion destroyed 4 enemy vessels total. Thelvos had never seen anything like it. In thousands of years of Zephyrian military history, no commander had ever deliberately sacrificed his ship. It was unthinkable. But the battle was not over. The remaining Reaper ships had surrounded the human fleet and were firing from all sides. It looked like the humans were trapped. Then something even more impossible happened. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster, who had escaped from the Hammer, was now on the Liberty. She walked up to Captain Harper with a request that made no sense. "Sir, I want to take a boarding party onto one of those Reaper ships." Harper looked at her like she was crazy. "Amy, those ships are alive. They're full of toxic gas and radiation. It's suicide." "Maybe," Amy said. "But if we can get inside one, we can learn how to kill them all." Harper thought for 10 seconds. Then he nodded. "Take 20 volunteers, but Amy, if it goes bad, we're not coming to rescue you." "I wouldn't expect you to, sir." Within minutes, Amy had her volunteers. All of them were Marines who had fought in Earth's corporate wars. They put on their heavy armor and grabbed weapons that fired depleted uranium bullets. The boarding craft was basically a missile with people inside. It flew straight toward the nearest Reaper ship while enemy weapons tried to shoot it down. The craft slammed into the side of the bioship and began cutting its way through the hull. Amy was the first one inside the alien vessel. The air was green and smelled like rotting meat. The walls were soft and wet, like being inside a giant stomach. Strange liquids dripped from the ceiling. "Spread out," she ordered. "Plant charges on anything that looks important." Her Marines moved through the ship like they were hunting dangerous animals. They had trained in the poisonous swamps of Earth and the radiation zones around old nuclear plants. This was just another hostile environment. The Reapers inside the ship were 8 feet tall with too many arms and eyes that glowed red. They moved fast and hit hard, but they had never fought humans before. Sergeant Tony Martinez found himself face to face with 3 Reapers in a narrow corridor. Instead of retreating, he pulled the pins on 2 grenades and held them. "Come on, ugly," he said. "Let's dance." The explosion killed Tony and all 3 Reapers. It also ruptured a major bioconduit that supplied power to the ship's weapons, all. Over the ship, Amy's Marines were doing the impossible. They turned the Reaper ship's own systems against it. They rigged explosive charges to the biocomputers. They even managed to introduce a computer virus that Dr. Reeves had designed. "This is Foster," Amy radioed back to the Liberty. "We've placed charges throughout the ship. Recommend all friendly vessels move to minimum safe distance. Amy, get out of there, Harper replied. Negative, sir. Someone needs to make sure these charges go off at the right time. Tell my kids I love them. The explosion tore the Reaper ship apart from the inside. The biohull split open like a rotten fruit, spilling toxic fluids into space. The other Reaper ships nearby were damaged by the blast, but Amy Foster was not done fighting. She and 6 of her Marines had survived in a sealed section of the ship. They used their cutting tools to breach the hull of another Reaper vessel. This is insane, one of her Marines said. We're boarding a second enemy ship with 6 people. The enemy doesn't know that, Amy replied. As far as they know, we're a full assault force. For the next hour, 6 humans terrorized an entire Reaper bioship. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, setting traps and ambushes. They used the ship's own biosystems against it, turning the vessel into a weapon against its own crew. By the time Amy's team finally ran out of ammunition, they had killed hundreds of Reapers and disabled the ship's main weapons. The battle ended when the surviving Reaper ships retreated. They had started with 12 vessels. Only 4 were still able to fight. Captain Thelvas sent his report to the Galactic Council that night. His hands shook as he wrote, "The humans do not fight like any civilized species I have observed. They use weapons that would kill their own people just to hurt the enemy. They sacrifice their ships without hesitation. They board enemy vessels with no hope of survival." He paused and looked at his notes again. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy it. After the battle, I monitored their radio transmissions. They were not mourning their dead or celebrating their victory. They were analyzing what they had learned and planning how to kill more Reapers next time. Thelvas ended his report with a warning. The humans are not just willing to die for victory. They are willing to become monsters. The galaxy wanted their help, but I fear we may have awakened something worse than the Reapers. In space, the human fleet regrouped around the Liberty. Captain Harper looked at the casualty reports. They had lost 1 ship and 37 people. In return, they had killed 8 Reaper vessels and thousands of alien crew. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," Commander Stone reported. "Admiral Richardson wants to know if we're ready for the next phase." Harper looked out at the stars where the Reaper ships had disappeared. Somewhere out there, a massive enemy fleet was coming to destroy everything humans had ever built. "Tell the Admiral we're ready," Harper said. "And tell him the Reapers just learned their first lesson about fighting Deathworlders." "What's that, sir?" "We don't fight fair. We fight to win." 6 months had passed since the first battle at Arcturus. The war was not going well for anyone. The Void Reapers had learned from their fight with humans and changed their tactics. They no longer sent small groups of ships. Now they came in, waves of hundreds, sometimes thousands. General Susan Torres stood in the war room on Mars, looking at the big map that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds that had been destroyed. There were too many red dots. Over 300 star systems had fallen to the Reapers. "Show me the latest casualty reports," she said to Colonel Mark Williams. Mark pressed buttons on his tablet, and numbers appeared on the screen. The numbers were bad. Very bad. "We've lost 48 ships in the last month," he said. "That's almost 800,000 crew members. The Zephyrian fleet is down to half strength. The Kellan defense force has been completely destroyed." Susan rubbed her tired eyes. She had not slept more than 4 hours a night for months. "What about our new weapons? The ones Dr. Reeves designed?" "They work, but not well enough. The biovirus kills individual Reaper ships, but their fleet is too big. We need something that can hit all of them at once." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Nicole Davis was preparing for the most dangerous mission in human history. Her ship, the Shadow Walker, was a stealth vessel designed to hide from enemy sensors. It was small, fast, and very hard to see. "This is crazy, even for us," said her second-in-command, Lieutenant Joe Miller. "You want to fly into the middle of the Reaper fleet and capture one of their command ships?" Nicole checked her equipment. One more time. The plan was simple but almost impossible. Get close to a Reaper command vessel, board it, steal their intelligence data, and get out alive. "The galaxy is losing this war," she said. If we don't learn how the Reapers coordinate their attacks, every living world will be dead in a year. The Shadow Walker had a crew of only 12 people. All of them were volunteers. All of them knew they probably would not come home. Lieutenant Jack Robinson was the youngest crew member at 22 years old. He had grown up on Europa, where the ice storms could kill you in minutes. Like all humans, he had learned early that the universe was trying to kill him. "Captain, we're approaching the Reaper fleet," he reported. "I count over 2,000 ships." Through the view screen, they could see the enemy vessels. Each one was the size of a city, covered in organic armor that pulsed like a heartbeat. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. "Take us in slow," Nicole ordered. "Use the debris field from Kepler-7 for cover." Kepler-7 had been a beautiful world with floating cities and crystal forests. Now it was just rocks and dust drifting in space. The Reapers had eaten everything, even the planet's core. The Shadow Walker moved like a ghost through the wreckage. The stealth systems made it almost invisible, but Nicole knew they could not hide forever. Sooner or later, the Reapers would notice them. "There," said Sergeant Lisa Murphy, pointing at the center of the fleet. "That's the biggest ship I've ever seen." The Reaper command vessel was 10 miles long and covered with sensor arrays that looked like eyes. Smaller ships flew around it like insects around a hive. "That's our target," Nicole said. "Get us close enough to board." Back on Earth, Dr. Carol Reeves was working on her most terrible creation. In her laboratory deep underground, she had been growing something that should not exist, a virus designed specifically to kill Reaper bioships. "The test results are promising," she told her assistant, Dr. Peter Kim. "This version of the virus can spread through their bio-neural networks and cause complete system shutdown." Peter looked at the data on his screen. The numbers were impressive, but they also scared him. "Carol, this thing could kill every Reaper ship in the galaxy. That's genocide." "Yes, it is," Carol said without emotion. "They're trying to wipe out every living thing in the universe. I think genocide is an appropriate response." She had not slept well in months. Every night she dreamed about the dead worlds the Reapers had left behind. Billions of people turned to dust. Entire species extinct. But what if it mutates? Peter asked. "What if it starts attacking other biological systems?" Carol stopped working and looked at him. "Then we'll have saved the galaxy by destroying it. Sometimes that's the only choice you have." Meanwhile, the war continued to go badly. The Reaper main fleet was moving toward the core worlds where most of the galaxy's population lived. Earth itself was in their path. Admiral Paul Richardson stood on the bridge of the battleship Determination, watching enemy ships fill the space ahead of them. There were so many Reaper vessels that they blocked out the stars. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from the Gordian Empire," his communications officer reported. "They want to negotiate with the Reapers." Paul laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tell them the Reapers don't negotiate, they just kill." The Gordians were a proud species that had never lost a war. Now they were offering to surrender rather than fight to the end. Paul understood why. The Reapers seemed unstoppable. "What are our orders, sir?" asked Commander Helen Baker. Paul looked at the tactical display. His fleet had 50 ships. The enemy had over 1,000. By any reasonable standard, they should retreat. "We attack," he said simply. "Sir, the odds are 20 to 1 against us." "I know," Paul replied. "That almost seems fair." The battle that followed became known as the Massacre at Proxima. Paul's fleet used every dirty trick humans had ever invented. They launched nuclear mines that looked like asteroids. They used computer viruses to turn Reaper ships against each other. They even rammed damaged vessels into enemy formations. But it was not enough. The human fleet was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. One by one, the ships were destroyed. Admiral Richardson's last transmission was heard across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Richardson to all human forces. We are heavily outnumbered but still fighting. Remember, Earth doesn't surrender. Earth just makes the other guy wish they had never been born." The Determination exploded in a nuclear fireball that took 12 Reaper ships with it. On the Shadow Walker, Captain Nicole Davis finally reached the Reaper command ship. Her boarding party consisted of just 4 people. It should have been impossible. to take such a massive vessel with so few troops. But humans had always specialized in doing impossible things. "Remember the plan," Nicole said as they cut through the biohull. "Get to the Central Intelligence Core, download everything, and get out." The inside of the command ship was like a nightmare. The corridors were lined with organic computers that pulsed with green light. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling and the air smelled like death. They fought their way through dozens of Reaper defenders. Lieutenant Miller was killed in the first corridor. Sergeant Murphy died protecting the rear guard. By the time they reached the Intelligence Core, only Nicole and Jack Robinson were still alive. "Download everything," Nicole ordered as she held off more Reaper attackers. "Every file, every communication, every piece of data." Jack's hands flew over the alien computer interface. The download would take 10 minutes. They probably did not have 10 minutes. "Captain, I'm getting something incredible," Jack said. "These ships are all controlled by a central mind. If we could destroy the command vessels, the entire fleet would be crippled." "How many command ships are there?" According to this, about 50 spread throughout their fleet. Nicole felt something like hope for the first time in months. If they could coordinate attacks on all the command ships at the same time, they might actually win this war. "Download complete," Jack said. "Let's get out of here." They fought their way back to the Shadow Walker, but Nicole was badly wounded. She had been shot 3 times and was losing blood fast. "Get this data back to Earth," she told Jack as they reached their ship. "Whatever it takes." "What about you, Captain?" Nicole looked back at the massive Reaper vessel. "Someone needs to make sure they don't follow us." She stayed behind and overloaded the Shadow Walker's reactor. The explosion destroyed the Reaper command ship and sent Jack's escape pod flying toward friendly space. 3 days later, Jack Robinson arrived at Mars with the intelligence data. General Torres read the files with growing excitement. "This changes everything," she said. "We know how to hurt them now." But even as she spoke, the main Reaper fleet was approaching Earth's solar system. The final battle was coming, and humanity was running out of time. President Alan Carter called an emergency meeting of all Earth's leaders, military commanders, corporate executives, colony governors, and even some reformed pirates gathered in the underground bunker beneath Geneva. "The Reapers will be here in 2 weeks, Carter said. "This is our last chance to stop them. Dr. Reeves, is your bioweapon ready?" Carol stood up slowly. She looked older than her 50 years. The stress of creating weapons of mass destruction had aged her. "It's ready," she said. "But once we use it, there's no going back. We'll be committing genocide on a galactic scale." "And if we don't use it," Carter asked, "then everything dies anyway." Carter looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They all knew what had to be done. "Prepare the weapon," he said, "and may God forgive us for what we're about to become." The Void Reaper fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a plague of locusts. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Vengeance, watching thousands of enemy ships pour through the hyperspace jump points. They came, in waves that seemed to never end. "Final count, Admiral," reported Captain Bill Turner. 8,000 Reaper vessels, all moving toward Earth. Kate looked at the tactical display showing her own forces. 2,000 human ships plus what remained of the Galactic fleet. They were outnumbered 4 to 1, but those were better odds than humans usually faced. "Signal all ships," she said. "Activate the Scorched Earth Protocol around Earth's solar system." Things began to happen that no alien species had ever seen before. The asteroid belt suddenly came alive with hidden weapons platforms. The moons of Jupiter opened up to reveal massive gun batteries. Even Earth's own moon split apart to show the weapons inside. For 50 years, humans had been turning their entire solar system into a fortress. Every planet, every moon, every large asteroid had been armed with weapons that could crack worlds. Captain George Mitchell commanded the last human dreadnought, a ship called Liberty's End. It was 3 miles long and covered with enough nuclear weapons to sterilize a star system. "Sir, we're receiving the final attack coordinates," his weapons officer reported. "Dr. Reeves's bioweapon is ready for deployment." George nodded grimly. The weapon that Carol Reeves had created was loaded into special missiles that would spread the virus throughout the Reaper fleet. It would kill every bioship in space, but it would also contaminate Earth's environment for decades. "Prepare to fire on my command," he said. On Earth's surface, Dr. Carol Reeves stood in her laboratory one last time. The bioweapon containers were empty now. Every sample had been loaded into the orbital weapons platforms. She looked at her life's work and wondered if she had saved the galaxy or damned it. "Dr. Reeves, you need to get to the shelter," her assistant Peter Kim said. "The contamination will reach the surface in 6 hours." Carol shook her head. "I'm staying here. Someone needs to monitor the weapon's effects. Make sure it doesn't mutate into something worse." Peter tried to argue, but Carol had already made up her mind. She'd created a weapon that could destroy all biological life in the solar system. She would stay to make sure it only killed the enemy. The battle began when the first Reaper ships entered weapons range. Earth's hidden defenses opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear missiles, particle beams, and kinetic weapons created a wall of destruction around the planet. But the Reapers kept coming. Their bioships absorbed the damage and kept flying toward Earth. Some of them were as big as cities, covered in organic armor that could heal itself. "They're breaking through the outer defense line," reported Admiral Sullivan's tactical officer. Kate watched Reaper ships pour past the destroyed weapon platforms. "Launch the bioweapon. All missiles, all platforms. Everything we have." Across the solar system, thousands of missiles launched toward the enemy fleet. Each one carried samples of Dr. Reeves's virus. The weapons looked like normal missiles, but they carried death itself. Captain Mitchell's ship, Liberty's End, was surrounded by Reaper vessels. His crew had been fighting for 6 hours straight. Half his weapons were destroyed and his shields were failing. "Sir, we can't hold them much longer," his first officer said. George looked at the view screen showing Earth behind them. The blue and green planet where humanity had been born, where his children lived, where billions of people waited to see if they would live or die. "Set course for the largest Reaper command ship," he ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir, that's a suicide run." "I know," George said calmly. "Signal the crew to abandon ship. I'll take her in alone." His crew refused to leave. Every single person on Liberty's End stayed at their post as the massive ship accelerated toward the Reaper command vessel. George's final transmission was heard throughout the solar system. "This is Captain Mitchell to all human forces. Tell Earth that we don't yield. We don't surrender. We just make the other guy wish they had never been born." Liberty's End slammed into the Reaper command ship at full speed. George triggered the ship's self-destruct as they hit. The nuclear explosion was so powerful it could be seen from Mars. But the real victory came from Dr. Reeves's bioweapon. The virus spread through the Reaper fleet like fire through dry grass. The bioships began to convulse and twist as their living hulls were consumed from within. Admiral Sullivan watched in amazement as Reaper vessels started attacking each other. The virus had corrupted their neural networks, turning the ships into mindless beasts. "The command ships are going down," her sensor officer reported. "All 50 of them are showing critical system failures. Without their command structure, the Reaper fleet fell apart completely. Individual bioships drifted helplessly through space as the virus destroyed their ability to think or coordinate." In her laboratory, Dr. Carol Reeves monitored the weapon's progress. The virus was working exactly as designed. It targeted only Reaper biotechnology and left everything else alone. But she knew the cost. Earth's atmosphere was now contaminated with viral particles. The planet would be dangerous for any biological species for at least 50 years. Humans could survive it with protective equipment, but no alien could safely visit Earth. "I've turned our world into a weapon," she said to herself. "We saved the galaxy by making ourselves untouchable." The battle ended, not with a glorious victory, but with silence. The space around Earth was filled with dead Reaper ships, their biohulls slowly dissolving in the vacuum. Thousands of human ships had been destroyed, but Earth still lived. 3 days later, President Alan Carter met with Council leader Vextar on the space station's central point. The old Zephyrian looked tired and afraid. "The galaxy owes humanity, a debt that can never be repaid," Vextar said. "You saved us all." Carter nodded but did not smile. "At a price. Our homeworld is now toxic to most species. We've become what you always feared we were, A weapon. The Council wishes to offer Earth full membership, Vextar continued. Full voting rights, trade agreements, cultural exchange programs. Carter stood up and walked to the window showing Earth in the distance. The planet looked peaceful from here, but he knew it was now one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. We appreciate the offer, he said. But we'll keep our distance. You called us when you needed killers, and that's what we are. The galaxy is safe now, but it's safer with us watching from the shadows. Vextar looked confused. What do you mean? We've learned something about ourselves in this war, Carter explained. When pushed to the edge, humans don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies cease to exist. That makes us useful allies but dangerous friends. He turned back to face the alien leader. We'll patrol the galaxy's borders. We'll watch for new threats. And if something like the Reapers ever appears again, you know how to contact us. And until then, we'll stay on our toxic world and continue being the monsters that saved you all. 6 months later, human ships patrolled the empty space where the Reaper fleet had died. They collected samples, studied the wreckage, and made sure no trace of the enemy survived. Captain Linda Hayes commanded one of these patrol ships. She had been a civilian engineer before the war, but like all humans, she had learned to fight when survival demanded it. Any sign of Reaper activity? She asked her sensor officer. Negative, Captain. The bioweapon was completely effective. There's nothing left but dead matter drifting in space. Linda nodded and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were rebuilding their worlds and returning to peaceful lives. They would remember the war as a time when brave heroes saved the galaxy, but humans would remember it differently. They would remember it as the day they proved that sometimes to save everything you love, you have to become something you hate. Deep in space, automated human listening posts kept watch on the galaxy's borders. Their mission was simple: watch for new threats and call Earth if anything dangerous appeared. The message they would send was already programmed into their computers. 4 simple words that would bring humanity's full military might to bear on any enemy. The Deathworlders are coming. And in the depths of space, far beyond the edge of known space, something ancient and hungry began to stir. The Void Reapers had been just the beginning. Other threats existed in the darkness between galaxies. But now they would face an enemy that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the only way to preserve life is to become death itself. The galaxy was safe, protected by monsters who had chosen to remain monsters so that others could remain innocent. And Earth waited in the shadows, ready to answer the call when the darkness came again.